Hey everyone, Richard Metalfan here, bringing you guys a brand new 2018 album review. And today we're going to be looking into the new album from the legends in symphonic black metal, hailing all the way from Norway. As you can see below the title, we're going to be looking into the new album from Dimmu Borgir, entitled Eonian, or however the fuck you say that. Forgive me if I butchered it, which was released under Nuclear Blast Records. Now, Dimmu Borgir definitely doesn't need an introduction if you're a fan of black metal or symphonic black metal. Hailing all the way from Norway, these guys have been around for 25 years, been around since 1993. And their first album that came out in 94, which was For All Tid, which I think with their earlier stuff with that and Stormblast almost had just straight up black metal. But I think it wasn't until Throne Darkness Triumphant onward where they added more symphonic elements to it, which I actually really loved. I mean, they put out like classic albums such as like Puritanical, I forget that one album title off the top of my head, which I thought was pretty good, and I really loved Death Cult Armageddon, which in my opinion is probably my favorite Dimmu Borgir album. And I also really loved 2007's In Sorte Diable, which for me, that was the album that really got me into Dimmu Borgir, and I've been listening to them for a little over a decade since I first heard them back in high school, when I had like a CD from Metal Hammer, where they actually distribute their stuff here in the States. I heard their song Sacrilegious Scorn. I was really hooked onto it. I loved how they had black metal. And I also had some clean vocals from former bassist ICS Vortex. And this was between that and they sort of between that and their previous album, 2010's Abrahadabra, where they had like lineup changes and some members got kicked out and stuff. And I thought Abrahadabra was solid, but it didn't compare to the previous album. And of course, this album is the long-awaited follow-up to 2010's Abrahadabra. And so it's been 8 years since we had any new material from Dimmu Borgir. But the question remains, does this album live up or exceed expectations as to what Abrahadabra had? In my honest opinion, it sort of does, but I mean, I've seen from what I've seen from reviews online and stuff, I mean, this album is sort of like half and half, where a lot of people really love this, and just if they're diehard fans of Dimmu Borgir, they would be like, fuck yeah, I love this album, and we'll defend it to their die. And some fans are like, ugh, what the fuck happened to this band? Like 8 years of waiting and that's what we get? For me, I'm sort of like in the middle, where I mean, I honestly have heard it a couple times, and I mean, it's okay. I mean, it's not like mind-blowing compared to like their older work, but I actually enjoyed it for a little bit. And the production, I think, was kind of a little bit weird. I don't know, maybe with sort of like the orchestrations and symphonics and stuff. Blech, can't even speak today, I'm sorry. Forgive me, I just got home from work. The vocal work, let's talk about the vocals from Shagrath. From what I've seen, a lot of people think he sounds like Palpatine on vocals from Star Wars, which I can almost hear he has that kind of feel to it, but he has feel that way, especially on Abrahadabra and stuff. I could definitely relate to it, but he's still one of the sickest black metal vocalists I've heard, especially with like older stuff. Guitar-wise, I mean, Galder and Celenzo's guitar work is just really great. It's just some really great leads and sick riffs and stuff. I forget their other three new guys they had, their new bassist, drummer, and keyboard player or so, but I think the bass I kind of wish was a little bit audible. The drumming I actually think was pretty good, just good, and the keyboards are solid. Without further ado, let's dive into this album track by track. Now the album opens up with the Unveiled Language. Immediately it sort of like sets the tone of the album going forwards, and perhaps sort of like the great microcosm for the album in general. It's sort of like synthier than the last album, in a manner not too dissimilar of Puritania, but it also has kind of like a weird kind of like creepier vibe, especially with like guitars, and heavier focus on like the choir and like the vocals, and sort of like has like a brooding melody to it, which I thought was pretty interesting. Then we go into Interdimensional No Summit, which was the first single off this album, and this right here I didn't really care for the song a whole lot. I mean, it sort of lands in like the so bad it's good but not really territory. I mean, I feel like the band sort of had fun with it, but but I just don't really care for that song. I'm sorry. Next song is I can really say that. That almost kind of has like the A with the E connected, similar to like Anima by Tool, but anyway. Wait, the song itself emerges from silence with the sound of Space Cadet guitars replaced suddenly by like a typical blast beats that you would expect from like typical Dimmu Borgir. However, about a minute in, the song takes like a dramatic shift and it begins to sound like another fellow Norwegian black metal band, Satyricon. Overall, I think it's one of the better songs on here. Next song is Council of Wolves and Snakes, which falls into the same formula of a techno opening and oddly directed chorus, but ours has a little bit of like howling wolves, and the verses are almost kind of like spoken word, with and the additions of the chorus and as like keyboards and sort of like a new player has emerged, has like an Eastern style like chant to it, which honestly I feels like seems a bit forced and trite. The Empyrean Phoenix. In my honest opinion, this could be one of the strongest tracks on this album. But like the first half and like the mishmash of like the handful of like weird different genres that the band sort of experimented on here. On sort of like a more positive note, the second half of the track ends with some memorable guitar work, combining like staccato playing with a little bit of minimalism, and like the single operatic voice sort of like adds to the value without drowning in their strength. Next song on the album is called Lightbringer, which falls in sort of like the same mold. Perhaps these licks were meant sort of like a homage, but for the band, well established in the right. This sort of like emerges as also like another one of the strongest tracks on here. I quite like this song a lot. Next song on here is I Am Songbird, which doesn't quite land as well it should. It's got like interesting like moving parts, and the bridge section at like around the halfway mark is particularly good, but it just doesn't seem to interlock properly. Archaic Correspondence, which is okay. Alpha Aeon Omega, I didn't really care for that one a lot. And then the album closes with Rite of Passage, which is actually an instrumental, weirdly, but it's kind of has a little bit of a melancholic but yet hauntingly beautiful vibe to it, which I think is another one of the better songs on here. Now overall, Eonian by Dimmu Borgir is sort of has like a mixed bag. Like I said in the beginning of the video, like a lot of people, if you're a diehard fan of Dimmu Borgir and you want to have everything and listen to it, by all means, all the power to you, go for it. But if you just prefer like their older stuff, just listen to the older stuff and just try not to avoid it. But for me, I honestly think this album is decent. Let's just say it, leave it at that. To make a long story short, like it's not like mind-blowing, but I like it. But if I were to give this album a score, I'll be honest with you, I'll give it probably a 7 out of 10. But yeah, that's my review of the new Dimmu Borgir album, guys. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about it, and I'll see you all in the next video, and keep it metal.